Six habits that make a AIGH mature woman IRSTIBLE. Some forces in nature require no announcement. They simply command attention through their very essence. The ocean doesn't proclaim its depth. Mountains don't boast of their height. Just as a tranquil pond mirrors the heavens above, a serene mind captures reality with perfect clarity. Similarly, a woman who has cultivated her inner nature and disciplined her actions becomes magnetically compelling, not through forceful effort, but because her essence radiates an undeniable pull. Observe this truth. Humans gravitate not toward chaos, but toward serenity, toward consistency, toward the uncommon quality of someone who operates with profound intention. Let us journey together through 6 practices embodied in 18 principles. Each represents a cornerstone of development. Each offers a pathway back to inner fortitude and elegance. Imagine a pristine mountain lake on a windless morning. The surface becomes a flawless mirror, capturing every cloud that drifts overhead, every branch that leans toward its own image, even your face gazing back with crystal clarity. Yet disturbed at stillness with ripples, and what remains? Only fragmented reflections, distorted shapes, and muddled visions. This same principle governs the human consciousness. A turbulent mind cannot perceive truth clearly, cannot appreciate genuine beauty, and cannot navigate life's choices with wisdom. An agitated heart misinterprets both people and circumstances. However, a tranquil mind resembles that perfect mirror. It captures reality exactly as it exists. This is why the foundational practice that transforms a mature woman into someone genuinely valuable and magnetically attractive is mastering inner stillness before taking action. Stillness should not be mistaken for passivity. It doesn't require becoming withdrawn or submissive. Rather, it involves selecting the sacred pause between trigger and response. It means establishing breathing room between what happens to you and how you choose to react. In everyday existence, most individuals behave like marionettes controlled by invisible forces. Someone delivers a cruel remark, and instantly a sharp, defensive comeback springs forth. A motorist cuts ahead rudely, and the horn blares in fury. The telephone rings, and it must be answered immediately. Such automatic responses demonstrate no mastery whatsoever. They expose a person governed by outside circumstances rather than inner authority. A woman who embodies true worth possesses the ability to pause, center herself, and permit her inner wisdom to determine the appropriate response. This pause represents pure power. In ancient monastery training, when novice practitioners first arrive, they burn with eagerness. They desire to strike rapidly, to move with lightning speed, to showcase their capabilities. Yet the teacher restrains them. The initial lesson involves not motion. Countless hours pass in fundamental stances, knees bent, frame steady, gaze serene. Many grow restless, questioning why they must remain like statues. Why not engage in combat? The master responds, if you cannot maintain stillness for 5 minutes, how will you stand firm through 5 years of life's challenges? Developing the practice of pausing before acting represents strength, not weakness. From that centered space, every movement becomes purposeful. Every utterance becomes intentional. Consider intimate relationships. Many connections between men and women fracture, not due to massive betrayals, but because of minor uncontrolled reactions. Thoughtless slights, hasty conclusions, inflammatory words that can never be withdrawn. Picture instead a woman who, when faced with conflict, simply draws a conscious breath and allows silence to communicate first. Her companion senses her strength not through volume, but through composure. That composure becomes irresistible because it provides security. Everyone seeks the person who can weather storms without being overwhelmed by them. How might you practice this in daily experience? Begin with something manageable. When the impulse to respond instantly emerges, whether in dialogue or when tempted to check your device, pause for 2 full breaths. This isn't laziness. This is training. 2 breaths create essential space. Within that space, clarity emerges. Within that clarity, you cease being a puppet and become the puppeteer. This mastery, though invisible to observation, resonates deeply with those around you. They develop trust because they sense you operate from consciousness rather than reactivity. Ask yourself, how often have I uttered words I later regretted simply because I failed to pause? How many disputes in my life might have dissolved if I had taken 2 breaths before responding? Such reflection cultivates humility, and humility provides the foundation where genuine value takes root. The woman who pauses, who embodies stillness, becomes a rare presence in our noisy world. Her stillness transforms into her power, her magnetism, her natural allure. Not through trying, but through simply being. Now let us transition to the second principle. Words carry living force. They possess the power to mend or wound, to bring harmony or kindle conflict. A mature woman recognizes that her speech can serve as either healing balm or destructive weapon. This understanding leads her to choose words as medicine. She doesn't squander them on meaningless chatter. She doesn't transform them into weapons during anger. She doesn't devalue them through empty praise. Instead, she speaks with clear intention, with self-discipline, and with genuine care. Her words become scarce and therefore treasured. They hold significance. Others pay attention when she speaks, not because she raises her voice, but because she communicates with meaning. An ancient Eastern proverb teaches the tongue may be soft, yet it possesses the power to shatter bones. Reflect on how many relationships have crumbled from harsh words rather than physical violence. Consider how many children bear invisible scars from thoughtless comments made by caregivers. Language may seem subtle, yet its influence runs deep. When a woman selects her words thoughtfully, she creates a sanctuary. Her partner understands that even during disagreements, she won't strike out carelessly. Her friends recognize that her support carries authenticity. Her family members know her words bring stability rather than turmoil. I recall a woman whose approach stayed with me. She never spoke while experiencing anger. Instead, she would record her feelings in a private journal, allowing the emotional storm to pass first. Only after her feelings settled would she express herself. Her words emerged precise, gentle, yet completely unforgettable. Others held her in deep respect because when she finally chose to speak, it felt like receiving wisdom refined through patience. Her words served as medicine. What defines medicine? It heals, it restores, it creates balance. This explains why people trusted her completely. Her value resided in her capacity to foster peace through language. In your personal life, observe your relationship with speech. Do you speak to discharge tension, or do you speak to cultivate harmony? During arguments, do you pursue victory, or do you seek mutual understanding? A valuable woman doesn't waste breath proving her correctness. She selects words that honor truth rather than ego. Because of this approach, her presence becomes healing. Individuals feel uplifted after conversing with her. They feel genuinely understood. Such experiences are rare. Rare qualities always carry value. One simple method to develop this skill before speaking during heated moments: quietly ask yourself, will these words create unity or separation? If the answer is separation, choose silence instead. Silence surpasses words that poison. Through time, this discipline becomes second nature. When your words do emerge, they will be valued, cherished, and remembered. This approach isn't about manipulating others. It concerns living with integrity. Your speech mirrors your inner discipline, and inner discipline attracts others magnetically. People sense it. They gravitate toward it because it feels both safe and strong. Ask yourself, do my words leave behind a pattern of healing or a trail of wounds? This question alone, when asked with genuine sincerity, possesses the power to transform your relationships. It can help you become someone whose presence feels irresistible, not due to appearance or charm, but because of how you make others feel when you communicate with them. Heard, trusted, and respected. This represents a far deeper form of attraction than surface beauty alone. This brings us to the third principle. Genuine value extends beyond mental stillness and wise speech. It also manifests through the body in how one moves, strides, and carries oneself. A woman's gait tells a complete story. It reveals her internal state, her equilibrium, her dignity, and her self-worth. Moving with grace doesn't concern perfection or sophistication in conventional terms. It involves harmonious energy. It represents alignment between inner essence and outer expression. People perceive grace not through their eyes, but through their intuition. Grace soothes others. Grace attracts effortlessly. One memory remains vivid in my mind. At a sacred place, an elderly woman arrived each dawn for walking meditation. She possessed neither youth, impressive height, nor elaborate clothing. Yet as she moved slowly, steadily, with each step measured and deliberate, everyone took notice. Why? Because her movements flowed in complete harmony. She wasn't rushing frantically. She wasn't dragging her feet sluggishly. She walked as though the earth itself was holy, as though each step constituted a prayer. People felt drawn to her, not because of conventional beauty, but because of the energy she embodied through movement. This exemplifies moving with grace. In relationships, grace becomes magnetic. A woman who moves with presence communicates silently, "I am at peace with myself." That inner peace draws others near. It generates trust and awakens respect. In a world where many rush about frantically, stumbling through life while distracted, the person who moves with awareness becomes impossible to forget. Even in crowded spaces, she emerges as a focal point, not through effort, but through energy. How can you cultivate such grace? Start by slowing your walking pace. Feel each footstep make contact with the ground. Imagine the earth itself listening to your movement. Walk not as though you're running late, not as though you're fleeing something, but as though each step offers a gift. Allow your shoulders to release tension. Let your breathing establish your rhythm. Experiment with this for one full day. Even when moving between rooms, you'll notice not only how others perceive you differently, but how you experience yourself differently. Deliberateness creates dignity. Awareness generates grace. Ask yourself, when I walk, am I rushing through existence, or am I honoring each step? What narrative does my movement tell about me? Does it speak of anxiety, distraction, or insecurity? Or does it communicate presence, stability, and calm? Your walk reveals your state of being. To move with grace means to live with grace. This becomes irresistible. People don't consciously think, "She moves beautifully," but subconsciously they feel it. They sense peace in your presence. They feel admiration for your composure. They're drawn to you because you embody harmony in both body and mind. Stillness before action, words as medicine, moving with grace. These three principles already shape a woman into someone magnetic. Not through effort, but through alignment. She becomes irresistible not because she attempts to attract, but because she carries within herself the qualities every heart yearns for: calmness, clarity, and harmony. These represent the practices of one who has trained her spirit. These are the habits of one who transcends ordinary to become extraordinary in her maturity. When you encounter a magnificent mountain, you understand something profound. The mountain doesn't need to shout. It doesn't sway with every breeze. It doesn't require explanations for its grandeur. Its strength lies not in constant demonstration, but in quiet endurance. This captures the essence of restraint. Authentic power doesn't involve grasping everything, speaking about everything, or revealing everything. It resides in the discipline of choosing what not to pursue, what not to say, what not to tolerate. A woman of substance, of maturity, of genuine value doesn't reveal herself through pursuit or proof. She reveals herself through the quiet mastery of restraint. In martial disciplines, students first learn that the most formidable technique isn't the one executed, but the one held in reserve. The strike that never lands demonstrates control. The technique that stops just short of contact shows discipline. Why? Because anyone can unleash force, but few can govern force. The same principle applies to life. Anyone can explode in rage, indulge excessively, or chase fleeting desires. But few can step back, smile softly, and choose patience instead. This control, this refusal to become enslaved by impulse, makes a woman genuinely radiant. She becomes someone others admire because her strength isn't chaotic, it's contained. Her energy isn't wasted, it's preserved. Restraint in everyday life manifests in simple ways. When anger surfaces, she doesn't allow her voice to rise with it. When gossip tempts her, she chooses silence. When an unhealthy relationship attempts re-entry, she doesn't open the door, even if loneliness whispers persuasively. This restraint isn't bitterness, it's clarity. It's the ability to recognize what drains life and to choose against it, even when emotions argue otherwise. Such restraint, practiced repeatedly, becomes dignity, and dignity is irresistible because it cannot be purchased, borrowed, or fabricated. It represents the subtle fragrance of self-respect. Consider how restraint transforms relationships. When one partner lashes out, the other typically reacts, and the fire grows. But when one maintains restraint, refusing to escalate, the fire lacks fuel. Arguments soften. Respect remains intact. When someone pressures you to justify yourself, sometimes restraint means not explaining. You don't plead for understanding. You allow silence to communicate. The person who can restrain from defending their ego often creates a stronger impression than someone who fills the air with arguments. The mature woman who has mastered restraint becomes unshakable because she's no longer pulled by the strings of impulse. Yet restraint differs from suppression. Suppression feels heavy. Restraint brings clarity. Suppression stems from fear. Restraint embodies freedom. When you practice restraint, you're not closing your heart. You're creating space to choose wisely. You're refusing to become servant to every passing urge. To develop this, begin simply once daily. Choose to decline something. Perhaps a minor distraction, a wasteful activity, or an invitation that doesn't align with your well-being. Each time you say no, feel the strength within it. Over time, this becomes natural, and people experience your presence as solid, trustworthy, magnetic. This leads us to explore another dimension of strength, the subtle art of boundaries. Boundaries often face misunderstanding. Some perceive them as barriers built to exclude people. Others view them as selfishness, as unwillingness to care. But this isn't accurate. Boundaries aren't walls, they're rivers. A river doesn't halt water's flow, it guides it. It shapes the path, ensuring balance, ensuring life flows without destruction. Human boundaries function identically. They're not about rejection. They're about respect. They're about teaching others how to treat you, not through loud demands, but through consistent self-respect. When a woman lacks boundaries, she becomes like a vessel without form. Whatever others pour into her, she absorbs, even if it poisons her. People unconsciously lose respect for someone who abandons her own limits. They push further. They take more because the person hasn't defined where respect begins and ends. Conversely, when a woman maintains clear boundaries, she doesn't need to raise her voice or explain endlessly. People sense her limits even when never spoken loudly. Her calm refusal, her gentle no, her quiet withdrawal when something crosses the line. These suffice. Boundaries represent strength without aggression. I once counseled a young woman who complained that friends constantly disregarded her feelings. She felt drained, unappreciated, and invisible. I posed a simple question: do you respect your own limits? She fell silent. Gradually, she realized she had been agreeing to every request, allowing people to violate her comfort repeatedly because she feared rejection. When she began declining calmly, without anger, something shifted. People began listening. They began adjusting their behavior. Her friendships improved not because she demanded respect, but because she first respected herself. Boundaries taught others how to love her correctly. Boundaries in relationships hold special power. Many women fall into the trap of giving endlessly, hoping their generosity will secure love. But love without boundaries isn't love. It's dependence. True love requires structure. A woman who can say, I love you, but I will not accept disrespect, creates security for herself and her partner. She becomes more desirable because her partner knows her love is strong but not weak. She isn't afraid of losing someone by protecting herself. She isn't desperate, and therefore her presence carries weight. Practicing boundaries begins with clarity. You must ask yourself, what do I value? What is sacred to me? Once you know this, you protect it. Protect your time. Protect your energy. Protect your body. Protect your peace. Protect your dignity. When you protect these, not with aggression but with quiet firmness, the world begins respecting you. Within this respect, your value grows. The woman who lives without boundaries is easily forgotten. The woman who lives with boundaries cannot be ignored. Connected to boundaries lies another gift, one even more rare, the art of listening. Listening isn't waiting for your turn to speak. Listening isn't filling silence with advice. Listening is the discipline of presence. It's the ability to enter another person's silence without trying to control it. When a woman listens in this way, she becomes irresistible because she offers what the human heart desires most, to be heard. Most people listen with half their attention. While another speaks, they're preparing their response, defending themselves, planning their reply. But the mature woman who has trained her heart knows how to give space. She leans into silence. She doesn't rush to fix, to prove, or to display wisdom. She listens, truly listens, as if nothing else matters in that moment. The miracle is this: people leave her presence feeling understood, even healed. Not because she solved their problems, but because she gave them the rare gift of complete attention. I remember a young student who once approached me, distressed about his training failures. He spoke for over an hour. I contributed only 5 words during that time. At the end, he bowed and said, "Thank you for your wisdom." But the wisdom wasn't in my words. It was in my silence. What he needed wasn't correction, but a space where his heart could empty itself without judgment. This is the power of deep listening. In relationships, this skill transforms everything. When conflicts arise, the one who listens deeply calms the fire. Instead of interrupting or rushing to defend, she listens, creating space for understanding. Her partner feels seen. When someone feels seen, their anger softens. Friends trust her because she listens without judgment. Family members open to her because her attention feels safe. This quality becomes magnetic. People are drawn to those who listen because being heard represents one of humanity's deepest needs. How to practice this in your life? Begin with one conversation daily. As you listen, notice when your mind begins planning your reply. Gently return it to the speaker. Allow silence to exist without rushing to fill it. Nod. Breathe. Let the other person finish. When you do respond not with a lecture, but with reflection. I hear that you're feeling exhausted, or I see this matters deeply to you. This small change is profound. It creates intimacy, respect, and trust. Ask yourself, do I truly hear others' hearts or only their words? Do I listen to understand, or do I listen to reply? When you cultivate deep listening, you not only transform how others experience you, you transform how you experience life. You begin to hear more, see more, feel more. The world reveals details that haste and noise always obscure. Restraint, boundaries, and listening. These 3 aren't techniques to manipulate others. They're states of being. Together they create a woman who is deeply grounded, deeply trustworthy, deeply magnetic. She isn't carried away by impulse. She holds herself with dignity. She isn't drained by others. She honors her own sacred space. She isn't distracted by her ego in conversation. She offers the medicine of presence. This combination creates rare energy, an irresistible force that draws others without her needing to chase. The truth is simple. People aren't drawn to noise. They're drawn to presence. Presence is cultivated when you choose restraint, when you uphold boundaries, and when you listen with your whole being. These habits require discipline, but discipline is freedom, and freedom is beauty. There's a reason some people seem to navigate life with quiet strength and dignity, while others constantly find themselves depleted, disrespected, or dismissed. That difference often lies in how they understand their worth and protect it. Many individuals struggle not because they lack intelligence, talent, or goodness, but because they allow themselves to be pulled into the gravitational field of people who neither value their presence nor respect their boundaries. Respect isn't merely about courtesy or politeness. It's about recognition of your humanity, of your right to exist without being diminished. How you carry yourself, the standards you maintain, and the limits you enforce will determine whether people honor that or trample it. When you begin to live with awareness of your value, you realize that not every situation requires your presence. Not every person deserves your explanation, and not every battle is meant for you. Life has a way of testing whether you're willing to defend your own dignity or whether you'll easily surrender it for temporary approval. The mistake many make is thinking that being accommodating, endlessly forgiving, or excessively available will win them love and loyalty. In reality, it often breeds the opposite content, manipulation, and neglect. Those who give without discernment, who serve without boundary, eventually become invisible in the eyes of those who take from them. You must remember that how others treat you often reflects what you first accept for yourself. If you allow disrespect once, you silently give permission for it to continue. If you diminish yourself to make others comfortable, you teach them that your light is negotiable, that your truth can be dimmed for their convenience. Once that standard is set, it becomes harder to undo. People rarely raise the level of respect they give you on their own. It is you who must insist on it. The strength to do this doesn't come from arrogance or hardness. It comes from clarity. It comes from knowing what you will and will not tolerate and being unshakable in that stance. Even when it costs you relationships, opportunities, or temporary comfort. Many fear this level of firmness because they don't want to be seen as cold, selfish, or unloving. But true love, whether for yourself or others, cannot survive without respect. Love without respect becomes exploitation. Kindness without respect becomes servitude. Patience without respect becomes enablement of abuse. Consider how often you have excused someone's repeated mistreatment because you believed their potential mattered more than their actions. Perhaps you told yourself they didn't mean it, or if I just keep being patient, they'll change. But years pass and the pattern only deepens. Respect is never cultivated by passivity. It's demanded through consistent action. When you stop making excuses, when you finally walk away from behavior that undermines you, you send a message not only to others but to yourself. I am worth more than this. That shift, though painful, is the beginning of reclaiming your power. People instinctively test boundaries. Even those with good intentions want to see how much they can lean on you, how far they can push, how much of yourself you're willing to sacrifice. This isn't always malicious. It's human nature. But if you never draw a line, if you never enforce a standard, you cannot blame others for walking all over what you left unguarded. Your life is like a home. If you never lock the doors, if you never maintain the walls, anyone can enter and rearrange things to their liking. Then you wonder why your peace feels disturbed, why your energy feels stolen, why your joy feels fleeting. Many people confuse selflessness with self-erasure. They think being good means never saying no, never challenging mistreatment, never withdrawing from those who exploit them. Yet there's nothing noble about being depleted. A candle that burns at both ends doesn't illuminate the room longer. It burns itself out faster. Protecting yourself isn't selfish. It's stewardship of the life you've been given. When you operate from that understanding, your presence becomes more powerful. Your words carry more weight, and your love has more authenticity because it comes from a whole spirit rather than a broken, desperate one. Think of the times when you stayed silent while someone insulted you, dismissed your feelings, or took advantage of your kindness. Did that silence heal the situation? Did it inspire them to respect you more? Or did it embolden them to repeat the pattern? Often the latter is true. Silence in the face of disrespect is interpreted as consent. Your unwillingness to confront doesn't spare you from conflict. It invites more of it. Yet when you calmly, firmly, and consistently draw a line, something shifts. The wrong people will retreat, but the right people will rise to meet your standard. In that way, your circle becomes purified, not by chance, but by your courage to enforce respect. It's also important to understand that respect begins in the smallest details. It's not only about how people treat you in grand moments, but in everyday interactions. Whether they listen when you speak, whether they keep their promises, whether they acknowledge your boundaries without resistance. If someone consistently interrupts you, dismisses your efforts, or ignores your requests, they're already communicating their level of respect. Don't deceive yourself into thinking they'll honor you in greater matters when they fail in small ones. Attention to detail in relationships reveals the deeper truth. Those who value you will show it not in occasional gestures, but in consistent patterns. At times, enforcing respect requires solitude. Walking away can feel lonely, especially if you've invested years into a relationship, friendship, or work environment. The temptation to compromise just to keep company is strong, but loneliness with dignity is always better than togetherness with dishonor. One sharp season of solitude can cleanse your life of years of toxicity. When you endure that period with strength, you attract the kind of people who are drawn not to your weakness, but to your strength, not to your availability, but to your self-respect. To live this way, you must cultivate an inner stillness that isn't swayed by guilt, manipulation, or pressure. People will call you difficult when you enforce standards. They'll call you arrogant when you refuse to be mistreated. They'll call you selfish when you choose peace over chaos. But remember, their labels are a reflection of their discomfort, not your worth. The ones who truly belong in your life will never be threatened by your strength. They'll be inspired by it. There comes a moment when you must decide that your soul is no longer a playground for others' carelessness, that your time is too precious to be wasted on conversations that go nowhere, arguments that drain you, or relationships that chip away at your self-esteem. When that decision becomes firm, life begins to open up. The energy you once wasted on defending yourself against disrespect becomes fuel for growth, creativity, and peace. Your spirit becomes lighter, your steps more intentional, your days more fulfilling. The lesson is simple but powerful. Stop giving people discounts on your worth. Stop selling yourself at clearance value just to be chosen. Those who cannot afford the price of your presence are not meant to carry it. When you embody that truth, you begin to see respect not as something you beg for, but as something you naturally command. There comes a time in every person's journey when the reality of discipline, self-control, and the quiet power of patience becomes unavoidable. Many live their lives chasing quick rewards, quick validation, and quick escapes from discomfort. Yet the most profound shifts are born not out of haste, but out of the willingness to stay with the process, to wait, to endure, and to refine yourself even when nothing seems to be happening on the surface. This waiting, which often feels like emptiness, is where the deepest growth begins. It's in those seasons when nothing seems to move forward that the roots of your character grow the deepest underground, preparing to hold strong when storms eventually arrive. Patience is not passive. It's not the absence of action. It's instead an intentional refusal to give in to the impulses of the moment. Think about a farmer. He plants the seeds, waters them, and cares for the soil. Yet he doesn't run to the field each day to dig up the seeds, demanding to see progress. He understands that growth is happening beneath the surface, even though his eyes cannot yet see it. In the same way, when you cultivate patience, you're allowing the invisible to work on your behalf. Life often delays results not because they're denied, but because you're still being prepared to hold them. Many people receive opportunities before they're ready and lose them just as quickly. The one who has developed patience, however, can hold what they're given and multiply it. Self-control works as the twin sibling of patience. Where patience governs how long you can endure, self-control governs how wisely you can act in moments of pressure. A lack of self-control has ruined more lives than lack of talent or opportunity ever did. People sabotage themselves not because they lacked gifts, but because they couldn't master their impulses. Think of how quickly anger can destroy years of trust, or how one reckless decision can erase the reputation built over decades. Self-control isn't about restriction. It's about freedom. The freedom to act with wisdom rather than reaction. The freedom to choose long-term peace over short-term satisfaction. To practice self-control means to pause before you speak, to breathe before you respond, to reflect before you act. It means understanding that not everything requires your reaction and not every urge deserves to be followed. Imagine someone throwing insults at you. The natural impulse is to throw them back, to meet aggression with aggression. Yet in that moment, if you control yourself, you preserve your dignity and deny them the power to dictate your behavior. What greater freedom can exist than knowing no one else controls your spirit but you? This is why true strength is often silent. It's not in how loudly you can prove yourself, but in how quietly you can resist being dragged into someone else's chaos. Patience and self-control together create a foundation upon which wisdom rests. Wisdom is not found in the frantic noise of constant activity, but in the stillness where reflection has time to settle. Many people confuse intelligence with wisdom, but they're not the same. Intelligence is the capacity to acquire knowledge. Wisdom is the ability to apply it with discernment. Wisdom comes not only from what you know, but also from what you're willing to wait for and what you're strong enough to refuse. Here's the secret: most people never realize that patience, self-control, and wisdom are cultivated most in discomfort. When everything is smooth, you don't need patience. When no one is provoking you, you don't need self-control. When no choices test you, you don't need wisdom. Growth, therefore, hides itself in trials. The very things you resent, the delays, the denials, the difficulties, are the exact soil that strengthens these qualities in you. Life is never against you in those moments, though it may feel so. It's shaping you for something higher, preparing you to rise without crumbling under the weight of what you prayed for. Take, for example, someone who longs for leadership. They might want the recognition, the authority, and the influence that come with it. But leadership without patience leads to rash decisions. Leadership without self-control leads to corruption. Leadership without wisdom leads to collapse. So life delays the fulfillment of their desire, forcing them to learn humility, discipline, and discernment in smaller arenas before entrusting them with